Today on Fear and Greed, Australia is being left behind on interest rates with more than a dozen nations now in a cutting cycle. The boss of an Australian mining company is being held by the military government in Mali, and beer drinkers are brewing their own to cope with the cost of living crisis. Plus more on market and the wash-up to last week's US election. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It's Monday, the 11th of November, 2024. I'm Adam Lang, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Adam.
Sean, the main story this morning, Australia is increasingly being left behind on interest rates, with a dozen central banks reducing benchmark rates in the past 2 months, while the Reserve Bank continues to hold the official cash rate at a 12-year high.
In the past week, Adam, central banks in the United States, the United Kingdom and Sweden have cut rates. There's also been reductions in rates in China. Outside those four, the Eurozone, Canada, Switzerland, Indonesia, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Mexico, New Zealand and Argentina have all cut rates. Of the big 10 economies tracked by Reuters, the only two on hold are Norway and Australia. There's one hiking, Japan, but in Japan rates were so very low, 0%. Any hike was probably a good thing. Most central banks around the world are increasingly confident that they have gotten inflation under control, albeit they remain cautious. Typical was the Bank of England late last week. It cut its benchmark rate. That's the second time it's done that. But it did say that it's worried that government spending could mean inflation will take time to fall. That's a common refrain here in Australia, and post the US election, it's going to be a common refrain in the US. Whilst the central banks are cutting rates, government spending isn't doing a lot to help. Now, it is true that the Australian benchmark rate, the official cash rate, is not overly high. It's still lower than the UK and US, for example, where 4.35%. Both those economies are 4.75%. Also, moves in rates in Australia have a bigger impact more quickly. That's because we primarily have variable rate mortgages, but in the UK and US, for example, they're fixed rate mortgages, so it takes a lot longer to flow through. Still, we do start looking like a pariah. The Reserve Bank Governor, Michelle Bullock, has played down the impact of other economies and last week insisted that underlying inflation in Australia is still too high. All very true. She also made a comment last week that she thought that the government spending, and this was federal government spending, was on track, but we're still out of step, Adam.
Sean, you're speaking about those other economies around the world there, and it was quite an incredible week last week for international markets.
Oh, wow, sure was. The US election was the big one, obviously, and the booming Trump trade. And the Trump trade are the asset classes that are doing really well on the back of expectations of policy changes in a Trump administration. Nothing exemplifies that better than Bitcoin. Over the weekend, it headed towards $80,000 a unit, easily the best or a record for that particular cryptocurrency. That's all about the fact that Trump wants to make the US the center of the crypto world. Bitcoin is benefiting from it. We talked about the rate cuts, but we've also had over the past week threats of a tariff trade war on the back of the Trump victory, a record close for the three main Wall Street indices, the broad-based S&P 500, the tech-heavy NASDAQ, and the top 30 Dow Jones Industrial Average. In fact, the S&P 500 closed at another high over the weekend. It has hit a record high 50 times this year. No stock is doing better than Tesla. It was up another 11% over the weekend, now worth just over $1 trillion. Beyond that, Adam, in China, Beijing pledged $1.2 trillion to shore up that economy. It wants to support local governments. It wasn't a big hit, and people had hoped for more in a way. And in trading over the weekend in overseas markets, BHP, for example, fell. But, it is just another addition to this ongoing stimulus coming out of China. Oil prices have come off a bit, as have gold prices. The US dollar is strong. It's putting pressure on all sorts of other currencies, although the Aussie dollar, it's trading just under 66 US cents. It's probably not doing too badly, all things considered. Anyway, it's going to be another great week coming up on the back of so much going on in markets around the world at the moment.
And the local market did pretty well on Friday too, Sean, with the S&P ASX 200 closing up 0.9% to 8,295 points, with tech stocks leading the way. And there was plenty of corporate news around here in Australia too.
Yeah, there are all sorts of AGM season, obviously. That's almost over, though. But we're also having quite a few profit upgrades, downgrades, that type of thing. So REA, the old REA, the online real estate group, reported a jump in quarterly revenue. News Corp's share price hit a record high after a robust first quarter. The chief executive, Robert Thompson, said the sale process for Foxtel here in Australia is progressing. Life 360, the tracking app, hit an all-time high after being upgraded by UBS. Its share price is up 200% over the past year. Not bad if you're on that one. Shares in Mayne Pharma jumped more than 10% after it confirmed that it was being shopped around to buyers. And biotech Neuron Pharmaceuticals rose 15% after it reported strong sales of its debut drug. That is for the treatment of Rett syndrome. Worst on the day on Friday was Block, owner of Afterpay. It fell more than 6%.
Sean, after this episode today, you've got an interview with Aidan Geisen from Vanguard. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I sure do. So Vanguard puts out a report, How Australia Retires, and it's an in-depth look at the needs and attitudes of people in the lead up and through retirement years. It is fascinating. Now, Vanguard's a great supporter of our podcast, and Aidan comes on, and this, like really simple things like 50% of Australians don't know what they pay in fees. And given that we should be very, very cognizant of what we're returning every year and the benefits of compound interest, that just really surprised me. I just couldn't believe that happened. Anyway, there you go.
Sean, perhaps it's you and I in our mature years. We are very focused on retirement one day. So this is a great interview for us and everyone else too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. ANZ boss Shane Elliott has warned that competition in the home lending and deposit market is intense as the bank recorded a big jump in loan repayments not being paid on time.
That's right. Mr. Elliott was talking after the country's fourth largest bank announced an 8% drop in cash profit to $6.7 billion. That was on Friday. The arrears rate, which is loans more than 90 days overdue, rose by 47% to about $4.2 billion. Mr. Elliott said higher rates are impacting customers. Generally, though, things are okay. ANZ has had a tough few months. It's been involved in a bond trading scandal, which we spoke about. That's still going on. There's also been a report into its workplace conduct. There's been problems out of that as well. As a result, Mr. Elliott lost half his cash bonus for the year. Other executives also lost part of their bonuses. ANZ is making a big technology play. It's got this thing called ANZ Plus for retail and small business customers and a thing called ANZ Transactive Global for mid-size and big businesses. Those technology platforms are being introduced into the bank in coming quarters. Now, already the bank says there are lower costs flowing through. It's also got to incorporate Suncorp's banking business, a bit going on in that one. What I find really interesting, so ANZ didn't have a great result, nor was National Australia Bank, nor was Westpac. They're the three that had their results out last week, Adam. Still, their share prices keep rising. Amazing.
It is incredible. And as you've commented on as well, Commonwealth Bank share price is a staggering number as well.
Yeah. I mean, its share price hit a new record high late last week. Incredible.
So in more of a busy week, Sean, auctions over the weekend had more than 2,800 houses going under the hammer nationwide. The preliminary clearance rate came in at just under 66%. It's better than a week ago, but still lower than average.
Yes, so Melbourne was busiest, 1,300 auctions. Preliminary clearance rate, one of those words I really struggle with. Preliminary clearance rate, Adam, that's it, 66.5%.
You did it, Sean.
I did. There was just under 1,100 auctions in Sydney, 68.2%. Now, both Sydney and Melbourne, that's 66.5 in Melbourne, 68.2 in Sydney. That's about in line with spring averages. Brisbane was 53.2, Adelaide 70.1. The ACT was pretty weak at just 45%. Rates are on hold, but sort of hopes of a cut some point in the new year is keeping the market ticking over, but it's not really doing much more than that. It's just ticking over. It's not great. It's not a horror either. Just ticking over.
Sean, the chief executive of listed gold miner Resolute Mining, Terry Holohan, has been detained by the military-controlled government of Mali in West Africa.
Reports say other executives have also been detained for questioning. They've been taken to a specialised unit, which the military government says tackles corruption and economic or financial crimes. The ruling military junta in Mali are known to want greater control over the mining industry. It is a very difficult part of the world to do business in. Mr. Holhan apparently had been questioned over suspicions of false evidence and misappropriation of public goods. He has denied those allegations, though at this point there seems to be very few details available. Resolute has 80% of a mine in Mali, as well as operations in nearby Senegal and Guinea, but let's just hope for the best for him.
Sean, credit ratings agency Moody's has cut its outlook for mineral resources to negative, citing the, quote, potential negative implications of corporate governance issues, end of quote, for downgrading the lithium and iron ore miner.
It adds to the pressure on the West Australian Companies Board as it attempts to restore investor confidence after a tax scheme scandal that resulted in its billionaire founder Chris Ellison agreeing to stand down as managing director within 18 months. The rating agency also cited concerns over elevated capital spending and weak lithium prices for the downgrade. It came at the end of quite a week in which Min Resources, its board, said that Mr. Ellison had failed to be as forthcoming with it as he should have been. The Future Fund, which holds only $8 million worth of stock, also wants to engage with the board of the company over the governance crisis. ASIC is also taking a look at it. One of those stories that's just going to keep giving.
Sean, a big story about the cost of living here. Beer drinkers are feeling the pinch with sales of home brew kits spiking.
Yes, so according to Cooper's Brewery, which has about a 90% market share of home brewing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're up quite sharply. The managing director, Tim Cooper, said high mortgage repayments, rents and grocery prices was sort of aiding the decline in beer sales. Younger drinkers are also giving up on beer. They're heading towards, well, not giving up, but not drinking as much of it, heading to spirits and alcoholic seltzers, according to a report in the Financial Review. However, higher home brew kit sales have pushed Cooper's to a 16% jump in profit. It's all about brewing your own. Great company, Cooper's. 1862 it started, still largely owned by the Cooper family. It's got about 5% of the national beer market. As I mentioned, 90% of the home brewing market. I've never tried home brewing. I don't know. I don't have the patience. You? Have you?
Or a spare bathtub. Oh, no,
Or a spare
haven't.
bathtub, yeah. Yeah. Don't think it's my thing.
Maybe one day, Sean, in our future years.
Maybe. We'll see.
Future beers in future years. Now, Sean, moving on to international news, there's plenty of speculation about who will be on Donald Trump's new team. Are there roles for Elon Musk and Robert Kennedy Jr.? We don't know the answer, but we do know who won't be in the Trump 2.0 administration.
Yes, definitely. Using his Truth social network, Mr. Trump said he won't be inviting ex-Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Now, Mike Pompeo, a few months ago, talked about the need for more weapons for Ukraine. Donald Trump has said, he'll be able to stop the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. Don't know how all that's going to work out. I mean, what's relevant to us in Australia is Mike Pompeo is a fan of AUKUS. And I think I'm sure every country is the same, but at the moment, every friend we've got in the Trump administration is a good thing. Donald Trump also said he won't want former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Now, Nikki Haley ran against Trump in the primaries. When she lost, she sort of suggested that people should vote for Trump. So she's been a supporter of Donald Trump. Though in August, I think it was, she famously told Trump to quit whining about Kamala Harris. And Donald Trump has a long, long memory. Donald Trump's only appointment so far is his White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. Susie Wiles is the first woman to hold that role. She ran his campaign in the election. Meanwhile, counting has been complete, at least for the presidency. Donald Trump managed to win all 7 battleground states.
Incredible.
These are the ones that Kamala Harris was hoping to win. He won all of them.
Such a decisive election.
Yeah, 312 electoral college votes to 226.
Sean, and before we finish up this morning, an interesting story out of the Financial Times about how interest in international education courses from US students spiked 5-fold the day after the election result.
Interesting or funny, Study Portals is a group which provides information on higher education. It's the number of searches by US students for foreign bachelor's and master's courses. On average, it's about 2,000 a day. On Wednesday, after the Tuesday night, Donald Trump was crowned next president. On the Wednesday, it went from 2,000 to 11,000 people searching.
That is so interesting.
It's really interesting. UK, Canada, Germany and Ireland were the 4 main places of interest. But it's fascinating just how many people jumped on and do that. I mean, it's American students don't necessarily travel a lot and study a lot abroad.
Mm.
They do somewhat, but not as much as many other countries. Anyway, it's 5 times the number on the day after the election jumped on study portals to see what their options were.
Well, it didn't look like we got much of a share of that, Sean, here in Australia. Maybe we've got some work to do. Get some of those students over here.
I don't know. I think I like the idea of having kind of I don't want to suggest anywhere is better than anywhere else, but I love the fact that we have so many students from our region coming to us.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
Totally. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview with Aidan Geisen from Vanguard, as well as the week ahead with Stephen Koukoulas.
Yes. So, I mean, the week ahead, it might be a misnomer that. Bit of a week behind, a little bit of a week ahead, to be honest. We talk a lot about what's been going on and where markets are up to. Not a lot on the economic front this week. There's National Australia Bank business survey, which is always very interesting. But compared to last week, it's a bit of a quieter week.
Yeah, plenty of context to bring home too. So that's up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your favourite podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Adam.
It's Monday, the 11th of November, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook, and have a great day.